All right, welcome back. Today we're diving into a story that's frankly one of the biggest environmental turnarounds in recent tech history. We're talking about NFTs and the whole Ethereum world, how it went from being this, energy guzzling monster to something genuinely eco-friendly. And the craziest part? It all happened because of one massive software update. So let's break down how they actually pulled this off.
So, for the longest time, this was the question hanging over the entire NFT space, right? Can digital art ever truly be eco friendly? I mean, you heard all these stories about artists who were fascinated by the tech, but just couldn't bring themselves to use it. They couldn't square the environmental cost with their conscience. It really felt like this cool new form of digital ownership was just fundamentally incompatible with being sustainable. But what if that whole equation could be flipped on its head? Okay, to really get a sense of just how big this problem was, you have to look at this number. 84 kilowatt hours. Now, before this huge update, that's how much electricity a single transaction on Ethereum used. We're talking about minting one NFT or even just sending some crypto from one wallet to another. To put that in perspective, that's enough juice to run an average American house for almost 3 days for one click on the blockchain. It's wild. So the question is, what in the world was burning through all that energy?
Well, the answer all comes down to the way these blockchains were originally built. The security system that powered both Bitcoin and, back then, Ethereum was a thing called proof of work. And, it was a really clever system, but man, was it ever an energy hog. So, what is proof of work? The best way to think about it is like a giant, worldwide, non-stop competition. You have all these super powerful computers, which we call miners, all over the globe, and they're all racing each other. What are they racing to do? They're all trying to be the very first one to solve this ridiculously complex math puzzle. And whoever wins that race, they get the prize. They get to add the next block of transactions to the chain and collect a nice reward for their effort. And this diagram really shows you where all that energy goes. See, the miners grab a bunch of transactions, bundle them into a block, and then they get to this step right here, find nonce. This is the race. It's basically a brute force guessing game on a cosmic scale. These computers are just hammering away, making trillions of guesses every single second, burning an insane amount of electricity until one of them gets lucky and finds the magic number. The whole system was designed to be hard and to waste energy, because, strange as it sounds, that difficulty is what made it secure. And that's why we call it mining. This quote really hits the nail on the head. Just like digging gold out of the ground takes a ton of heavy machinery and real-world energy, mining for crypto on a proof-of-work system took a ton of computational power and real-world electricity. The more energy you burned, the more secure the network was. That was the trade-off. Okay, but what if there was a way to get all that security without having to burn down a small country's worth of electricity? Well, that's exactly the question that led to this brilliant solution. A totally different system called proof of stake, and it just completely changes the game. So instead of this frantic race to burn the most energy, proof of stake works more like a lottery. But your lottery tickets are based on how much you have invested in the system. Here's how it works. Participants, who are now called validators, have to lock up some of their own crypto. It's like putting down a security deposit. This is their stake. Then the network just randomly picks one of these validators to create the next block. The more you have staked, yeah, the higher your chances of getting picked, but critically, it's not a race. There's no puzzle to solve. Now, let's look at this flowchart and compare it to the one we saw before. See what's gone? That whole find nonce loop, the energy guzzling part, it's just not there. It's been completely removed. Instead, you have validators who put up their stake, and the system just picks one. And here's the clever part. If a validator tries to cheat the system, the network takes away their stake. They get slashed. So the security comes from having skin in the game, financially, not from burning electricity. So really, it all boils down to this one key difference. With proof of work, you secure the network by proving you spent a ton of money on electricity. It's security through work. With proof of stake, you secure the network by proving you have a ton of money locked up in the system. It's security through capital. One burns energy, the other risks. Now, for a long, long time, this was all just an idea on a whiteboard, a theory. But then, the Ethereum developers decided to actually do it. They decided to attempt what is probably the most insane software upgrade in history. Imagine performing open-heart surgery on a patient while they're running a marathon. That's basically what they were doing to the world's second biggest blockchain, and this historic event was given a name, the merge. This didn't happen overnight, of course. The groundwork was laid for years. Back in 2020, they launched a test version of the new system called the Beacon Chain that ran in parallel.
And then, on September 15th, 2022, the big moment came. The old proof-of-work engine was switched off, and the new proof-of-stake engine was seamlessly hot-swapped in. Just like that, years of mining came to a complete stop. And the results? I mean, just look at this chart. It's absolutely staggering. That's not a gentle slope. That is a vertical cliff face. The very second the merge went live, Ethereum's energy usage didn't just go down. It fell off a cliff. It basically flatlined. So how much did it drop by? More than 99.95%. Just let that number sink in for a second. 99.95%. The network's entire energy footprint was pretty much wiped out overnight. And this wasn't done by building new power plants or anything physical. It was just code, a software update. This bar chart really drives the point home. On the left, you've got these two skyscrapers of energy usage, Bitcoin and the old proof-of-work Ethereum. They're using hundreds of terawatt hours a year. And then, look all the way to the right. See that tiny little sliver? That's the new proof-of-stake Ethereum. You can barely even see the bar. It's basically a rounding error compared to what it was. Okay, but this might be my favorite way to visualize it. This is just brilliant. If we imagine the energy for one Bitcoin transaction is the size of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on Earth, then the old Ethereum was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Still a massive building, right? And the new eco-friendly proof-of-stake Ethereum transaction, it's a screw. A tiny little screw. That's the difference we're talking about. It's just mind-boggling. So it's clear they knocked the energy problem out of the park. Total success. But what does this actually mean for the future? And are there any downsides? Any trade-offs we need to think about? This table gives us a pretty good side-by-side comparison. I mean, look at the wins for proof-of-stake. Energy use, obviously, but also speed, the ability to scale, and more stable transaction fees. It's a huge upgrade in a lot of ways. Now, proof-of-work has been around longer. It's definitely battle-tested, but proof-of-stake security is also thought to be really, really strong. The one area where there's still some debate is this idea of centralization risk. So let's talk about those trade-offs. The big worry with proof-of-stake is basically the rich get richer. The idea is that people or companies with a ton of money could lock up a huge stake and gain too much influence over the network. Now, there are a lot of safeguards built in to prevent this, and it's something everyone in this space is watching very closely. It's also worth noting that other blockchains, like Cardano, have built their proof-of-stake systems in ways that many argue are even more decentralized, so it's definitely a solvable problem. But let's be clear, the positive side here is just massive. The really exciting thing is what this unlocks. Now that the huge environmental question mark is gone, developers can start building things on the blockchain that are actually focused on the climate. Think about things like transparent carbon credit markets or projects that fund environmental regeneration. These are things you just couldn't build in good conscience on the old system. Now you can. And so that brings us right back to where we started. That big question. Can digital ownership be sustainable? Well, we now have a clear, definitive answer. Yes, absolutely. The merge was proof that even massive global technologies can make a hard pivot towards being environmentally friendly. So the conversation has totally shifted. It's not about if we can do this anymore, it's about what's next. Now that we have this incredibly powerful tool that's also super energy efficient, what are we going to build with it?